Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Ranting Shop. This is Melissa. Today we're back again to discuss another IG Live from two contestants of Ready to Love Season 4 episode. I think they were talking about episode 7. So these two contestants were Kyra and Verneashia. They discussed their some behind the scenes things, and I want to focus more on Verneashia, considering we were all baffled when Joel mentioned that Kyra was his number one when he had been saying Verneashia was his number one. And if you watched the live, Kyra was also surprised. Kyra was 100% surprised that Joel decided to say that she was his number one, and I will let you know why she was surprised later on in the video. But we're gonna start off with, so if you watch the live, you realize that they did a whole breakdown of the show and everything else like that. Like, I wasn't too interested in their breakdown of the show. I was more so interested in them, more so Verneashia, clearing up some things about what really happened with Joel, because the assumption is that Joel thought that Verneashia was too controlling, too territorial, too overbearing, too everything, that made him kind of push back from her. And this live gave a different perspective of what indeed happened. I know some people were on point as far as them saying that it was not something that Verneashia did just because she wanted to be obsessive and compulsive and territorial. It was something that he led her to believe, and she's definitely agreeing to that narrative. So the first thing I learned was, she said she's not clingy. She's not a clingy person, and it's not in her character to be clingy. As far as viewers watching, the only glimpse that we got of her being a little bit jealous, a little bit territorial, was when she was talking, when Amber disclosed that she and Joel shared a kiss. Verneashia felt a ways about it, but not to the point where she was, I guess, overly territorial and overly protective. She just didn't understand why he shared a kiss with her, but he hadn't shared a kiss with Verneashia on the show, because she stated that they kissed off the show, but she wanted it to be seen and shown on the show, and that didn't happen. But Amber's kiss was shown. She then stated that she was only following his lead, and as I said, a lot of people assumed that from watching the last episode, that it wasn't something that she did just because she wanted to be obsessive and crazy. It was something where she was following what he was doing. So if he's giving her all this positive affirmation and all this positive energy, and he made her feel like, she was stable with him, and she was strong with him and confident in him and in their relationship, and all of a sudden he chooses Kyra. She shocked, Kyra shocked. She said the territorial comment that she made on the show was edited, and that was not what she really said. It wasn't in the right context. The friend was asking her, this is a group environment, would you give him space to, date other people and so on, like that. And she mentioned that she doesn't like to share, because for Verneashia, she's locked into Joel. However, maybe Joel, he appears to be 100 with her. However, on the show, it appears that he was not 100 with her. But she was fine with him dating around. She was fine with it, and she understood that it was a dating situation. When she said territorial, she meant she doesn't like sharing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she doesn't understand and give him his space to do and be and make connections with whoever, because she made the example of Dietrich. She mentioned that Dietrich had an interest in her at some point, and then he moved along to Stacy, and when he moved along to Stacy, she was fine with that. It didn't really bother her. But her problem with Dietrich was that you can't move over to Stacy, and then when Stacy rejects you, come back over to Verneashia. Verneashia was like, no, that's not happening at all. They were like, the questions were also, how do you feel about, Joel calling these women baby and all these things, seemingly flirty with these other women. And she was okay with it. She understands, I suppose, how he is. Her problem or her issue was that, and Kyra was telling her that perhaps she used the wrong word. Territorial wasn't the word that she needed to use. However, Kyra also didn't see the issue with the word territorial. What she said that Verneashia should have said was protective of that relationship as opposed to territorial over it. Because, like, the connotation of the word territorial is almost as if you're gonna go into battle for what's yours. You're gonna be or get into an aggressive space for what's yours. And I suppose for a lot of people that could be not be interpreted in a way that's not positive. So I completely understand, you know, how it could be misinterpreted. And she just meant protective, you know. You could tell that Joel and Verneashia had a very tight relationship because all the other cast members, including Kyra, has confirmed that they were solid from day one. That solidifies that. And then one important thing to note was she said that Joel never told her that he had a problem with her being territorial. He never said or indicated to her that it was a problem. And that's my issue. If there's no communication as far as how you're feeling, how do you expect the other person to receive that? How do you expect the other person to take it into account and work on that? I mean, come on, be reasonable. Communication is a major issue in relationships. And she stated that one of Joel's issues or red flags is that he has a problem with communicating. She gave an example when she spoke about the communication on the phone. That phone conversation that Joel spoke about in the tavern, she broke it down and she said that actually that conversation was about a misunderstanding or miscommunication as far as Joel was concerned. He was in the wrong from her perspective. They had to go on a date and it ended up that he couldn't make it to their date. But what he did not do was he failed to tell her that he would not be able to make it to the date with her and had her waiting there for 3 hours for him. And she felt very disrespected, as I'm sure a lot of people would, because time is valuable. And if you have made a promise to meet with somebody, to go out with somebody, whatever obligation you promise to do with them, you should come through with that, you know. And her problem is Joel assumed that she would understand that if he didn't call, it was because of something serious. However, because according to Verneashia, that wasn't communicated to her, she had no clue. So how was she to assume that because you didn't contact her, it automatically meant something important or something, you know, drastic happened? There's no way to make that assumption, especially when you guys are still in the dating phase of life. So that was the issue there. And now that she spoke on this, that's even a bigger red flag with Joel. Like, if you're unable to communicate with your partner effectively, then there's bound to be cracks in the relationship. Because somebody can misunderstand your point of view, you could misunderstand their point of view because you didn't say everything that you needed to say for clarity's sake. For clarity's sake. For transparency's sake. You know, at least be more specific. You know, and that was the issue. And so she said she got a bit angry about that. And perhaps she did raise her voice and so on. But that little bit of miscommunication, even if it was his fault, was enough for him to change his mind and say Kyra. And one reason why that was a mind F for Kyra and for mostly, I'm gonna just say everybody on the cast, is that Kyra divulged this herself. She only went on one date with Joel off the show. And the way the date came about was because she happened to be in the area he was in, and so because of that they decided to just go out to eat somewhere. It wasn't anything fancy, it wasn't anything that was a big deal. It seemed, the way Kyra was describing it, like just something where they just hang out. It wasn't a big deal, there was no romantic connection formed. It was probably a friendship type of situation, like, oh, you here, let's meet, let's chat. So Kyra was like baffled and confused. The thing with Verneashia is not that she didn't know everything Joel was doing. She said that she was privy to everything. The date with Kyra, the kiss with Amber, everything she was privy to. So that is why when we watch the next episode, we're gonna see her confronting Joel about saying that Kyra was now his number one. That's gonna be confronted and discussed in the next episode, and we're gonna see I suppose what Verneashia was talking about in terms of that miscommunication thing. And as I said in the last review, if you're so willing, if you're so quick to jump ship because of something you did, all in the name of not wanting to argue or not wanting to discuss, That is a major red flag. On top of the fact that you're overly charismatic, everybody likes you, you're kind of a ladies' man. If a woman is not secure in herself, that would never work. But as Verneashia pointed out, she's very secure in herself, and it's not in her nature to be like obsessive and demanding and all these other things. I mean, the truth lies somewhere in between, I guess. You know the show makes people look certain ways, and if they don't give a proper explanation as to how things happened, you would, go with the narrative of the show. Kyra also mentioned that Joel checked on all the women. It wasn't only Kyra that he checked on. He probably went out on little dates with all of them. And according to Verneashia, she knew that. So, out of everything that was said, we learned that Joel is a bad communicator. Just based on Verneashia's story. He's not good at communicating. And I also think he's not good at confrontation. And whenever he sees confrontation is about to happen, he runs away from it. And that's an issue. Because in relationships, sometimes you don't agree. And if you're unable to talk to your partner about it without it blowing up into a big discussion or him storming off and breaking up, then how solid would a relationship be with him, So, we also learned something about Kyra that I think we should drop in here. We learned that Kyra's number one, according to her, was always Jason. That was always the person that she said she would leave the show with. And I know that we, from watching the show, has gotten the impression that she would go with AJ over Jason. But according to what she's saying, she would go with Jason over AJ. Just because she was still not sure about AJ. And because of that, she had her guard up. She was waiting for him to show her that he was not what she was thinking he was, And a lot of people were clowning her, including me, for giving him another chance after saying that he was an El Cheapo. And she was like, well, she was thinking that because he came on this show, and this show is about finding love, that he had probably changed and was a different person than who she had that date with. So she decided to give him a chance. And she said that the reason why she brought up the cheapo thing was because that was where they left off. Because after that date that she deemed bad, they never communicated with each other. So she was like, what better way to, continue on from where we left off than to talk about the last date that we both had. So there's that. So she was not surprised that David picked her for his number one, just because the cast knew that, I guess, Kyra and David had some type of relationship, And Kyra's also mentioned that the reason why she wouldn't go for Joel was because she didn't want a guy with children. And Joel had two. And at the point where she is in her life, the last thing that she wants to do is to take care of somebody's child. They were just at two different points in life. So Joel and Kyra would never work. Just based on where she is in her life and where he is in his life. Verneashia is a better fit for him. She has children. He has children. They've been through a whole lot. They understand each other. And that's why she was so shocked. Like, you guys have been solid. Why are you now throwing my name under the bus? Or should I say, frame my name as your number one? And another thing is, I felt like Joel just said it because he was feeling salty about that phone conversation he had with Verneashia. But I felt like for him to do that was so petty. Not even Kyra was flattered by it, according to what she said. She was pissed. Because what it did was it gave people the impression that Kyra was doing like sleazy things to get these men to pick her. I forgot to mention that Kyra also confirmed something that somebody said in the comments, which was that Jason implied that they had something more than just a small kiss. And Kyra said that when Jason said they had a kiss, he almost implied that they did more sexually, and she was saying no, it was just that small kiss on the show. So for that person, and she wasn't doing that, when she figured you weren't the one for her, like, you knew, and David knew. There you have it. That was Kyra and Verneashia's life. I spoke more on Verneashia because that was the area that interested me more. So yeah, Kyra was dating Jason more so than AJ. At least in the aspect of having similar life goals and similar wanting similar things for their lives at that point. And Jason was more open with her. Jason was more, I guess, trustworthy from her perspective. So I believe they've already done the reunion. Things have been said, feelings have probably changed, because you know sometimes you may feel one person is one way with you, you go to the reunion, something else was revealed, and suddenly your perspective on them changed, and then you do these lives, and then we see one thing and then you're telling us another thing, and we can't connect the dots because there's more of the show to go. So you guys, that is it for my little review of Kyra and Verneashia's live. It was quite interesting. They spilled a little tiny bit of tea. As they all say, production plays a role in who you may go on a date with, but it is as a result of what you say you want. So if you say you want to go on a date with Verneashia and Verneashia also wants to go on a date with you, they'll put you guys together. But the production team also wants people to date other people. So we didn't see Alexis with KG, and I wanted to see that, but according to KG, they did go on dates, it just wasn't shown. Okay, so thank you guys for listening. Let me know if I could have spoken more about something else, or if I should have delved into another thing. At any case, like and subscribe, and be sure to stay tuned for another review of Ready to Love. Thank you guys. Have a nice day. Like and subscribe if you like me. Like and subscribe if you agree with me, even if you don't agree with me. Like and subscribe, you guys. We're building a little community of free thinkers, people that are not afraid to give their opinions, people that are not afraid to be the only one with their opinions, because you know sometimes that could be a little bit scary, because you're out here alone thinking the way you think and other people are, you know, looking at you crazy. I mean, it is what it is. Okay, so bye guys.